In this video, we are going to learn how to import sub-daily or hourly data into RedScreen Expert Performance Analysis. In this example, we are going to be working with hourly electricity data in Excel. So let's take a look at the data before we import it into RedScreen Expert. The key thing to look for in your data, along with your begin and end dates, is the timestamp on your date format. We can see here we have the timestamp at the end of the date format. You can either do this by using a single cell format like we have here, where it is month, day, year, and then the hour, or you can have the date cell and a time cell separated. Either one works, but make sure you actually have the hour timestamp there. So now that we have checked our data, we're going to close this Excel file down in order to import it into RedScreen Expert. So I can jump over to my location tab, which I have already set up to just outside of Toronto. And now I can move over to my facility tab, which I have also set up. So this is a wellness center or a gym, and I have my benchmarking data there as well. So now I'm ready to jump over to my data tab and start importing my hourly data. So now that I have my file set up, I'm just going to work my way through the steps on the data tab in order to import my hourly electricity data as well as my weather data from the NASA database. So I'm going to go to step 1, consumption. I'm going to create my electricity consumption table. Now I will verify what RedScreen is asking me here. So I have my name of my table, which I'll leave as electricity consumption for now. I have my units of electricity are in kilowatt hours, and if I was to bring in my power data, it would be in kilowatts. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to click on our advanced button below that. So here we want to enable our sub-daily data to be brought in. So that's the key thing here, is to make sure you enable your sub-daily data. And then I'm going to click next, and I'm going to select to import my data from an Excel worksheet. There's many other options, but for this example, we are going to work with our Excel data. So I'll click Excel and OK. So now we want to navigate to where we have saved our Excel file, and then select that file and click Open. Once you've opened that file, there's a few things you'll need to verify on this screen. So we want to make sure that RedScreen has found the correct Excel worksheet, as well as the correct worksheet within that Excel worksheet. And now if your headers and units are not in row 1 and your data in row 2, you do have the ability to change that here. In our case, everything is set up already, so we do not need to make those changes. Now if I click the Advanced tab below here, I can also customize a few other things like date formats, text qualifiers, decimal separators, and thousand separators. But I set up my Excel sheet pretty simply, so I do not need to change anything there. And now we'll also notice over under our data processing that our sub-daily data is enabled, and that our import method is append data. So that means if I want to update data, it will just add any new data to the end of my RedScreen tables. So now I'm going to click next. And now this is where I'm going to tell RedScreen what columns from my Excel sheet I want to actually import into RedScreen Expert. So if I have many columns in RedScreen, I do have the ability to say do not import all, and then go through and select only the few that I want to import, or I can select import all, and it will import all of my columns here as well. But I'm going to go through and manually tell RedScreen what column to import, since I do not have that many. So under my power data, which is actually was my period, I'm going to select do not import on that one. It's not power data, and we don't have an option for period here. So I'm going to put do not import. Also my duration of the period, which is 1 hour in each case, RedScreen looked at that as a cost, but it's not a cost, so I'm also going to do not import that as well. So the next thing is to just check the columns that you want to import. Make sure RedScreen found your begin date with a date and time, your end date as well with a date and time, and then your electricity data as the final one. So now, once I've verified all of that information, I want to click Calculate, and import that data into RedScreen. So now that I have my data brought into RedScreen Expert from my Excel sheet, I can see here that on each page of our data, so we have 5,000 rows of data per page. If you have more than that amount of data, you'll have to navigate over to the second page in order to see your latest data. I can scroll down to the bottom here and I can see this data goes up until the end of March 2022. So if I wanted to update, all I would need to do is go over to step 3 under data processing, click on the update button, select that Excel table again with my new data updated in there. So I've updated my data and added a couple extra months. So as long as there's new data in there, RedScreen will append all of that new data to the bottom of your sheets once I click the update button. So we can see here, once RedScreen does its thing, that we now have our data up until the beginning of May here. So now it is worth noting that once that Excel connection is established between RedScreen and your Excel sheet, it will remember that for each time you come back and do an update. And also when you close a RedScreen file and reopen it, it will ask you to do an update automatically. So you can choose to do so at that point. Now the last step we want to do before we move on to our analytics is to download our weather data. So I'm going to go over to step 2, factors of influence. I'm going to click on my weather data. I'm going to verify my location. I'm going to verify my elevation. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to click advanced in order to enable sub-daily weather data to be brought in. So I'll click enable. I'll click next. Now I'm going to select the NASA weather data. I'll click OK. And now, since we brought in our electricity consumption table first, RedScreen has gone and found our begin date, and it has set our end date until the most recent date. So now we want to tell RedScreen that we want to get hourly data, not daily, since we have hourly data. So now we can click calculate it and let RedScreen go and download the NASA data for us. So once RedScreen gets our NASA data, we are ready to proceed to the analytics section if we choose to do so. So now that I have all of my electricity data and weather data brought in on an hourly basis, if I do not want to do my analytics on an hourly basis, RedScreen has a handy little tool. So if I click onto my electricity consumption table, I can go under step 3, data processing. I can click on the filter button, and then I have the ability to group by year, quarter, month, week, day, hour, or user defined, which would be any period of time you set. So for here, I'm going to group my data by month. So now I have monthly data on a calendar year, which I can then analyze in the RedScreen performance analysis.